This year I needed a new tree topper, so today I'm taking you from concept to finished project. So first we need to create an SVG file. You could use the pin tool or the shape tool. These are just graphics that can be recalculated each time they're scaled. So on my home printer I was able to scan our star, and I used a quarter for reference. And because we're going to be using a 3D printer, we're going to be using millimeters, so bear with me. The average quarter is just over 24 millimeters. And as long as we're close to that, we'll be fine. With that, we can scale the scanned image. With the pin tool, we're going to trace out these lines. We're just going to be doing the one side and then mirroring it. So after we created a complete path, we're going to be using symmetry mode. And the options we're looking for are reflect on X, we're going to mirror it on the right side, and we're going to make one copy. Next, we need to add the eye, so we're going to use the rectangle tool. Trace this eye and it automatically copies over to the other side. After finalizing, all we got to do is save as, and now we have a working SVG file that we can import into our 3D modeling software. Next major step is opening up Fusion 360. We're going to be using this for our 3D modeling. We're going to import this SVG file. And this is when it gets a little tedious. We're going to be doing these outlines. We're going to be using the basic shape and use the offset tool. And we're going to be thinking way ahead. We're going to be creating the walls, the lip to the lid, the eyes, and design a nut and bolt to keep it all together. So first we need to think about the body and the lid. Throughout this whole design, we're going to be thinking about clearance, and this just gives us a little bit of space between the two 3D printed parts. Here I'm going to be super lazy. I'm going to try to find the center point based on these rectangles and use a large circle to pinpoint it. This is to create a center point, so we can use later for our bolt to go through to hold this all together. Now let's make this 3D. So we're going to select every single one of these areas, except for those small circles. Then to make it 3D, we're going to extrude it. Next, we're going to select the walls that we designed and extrude those as well. And we have our first 3D object. The body is done. Let's save this as a STL file and move on to the lid. We're going back to the original design, selecting all the areas one more time, except for this time we're not selecting the rectangles. We're going to extrude one more time to create this lid, but this time we're going to select this area to extrude with it as well, so it can fit with the main body. Save as a STL file, and we're all done with the star. Last, we're going to be creating the eyes. We're going to be extruding two rectangles stacked on top of each other. One will sit inside the eye socket, and one will act like the top of the bolt. It's a little confusing, but you'll see in the end. Then we're going to create a smaller circle. This will be the bolt. We're going to add some threads to it. And we're going to save that as a STL file as well. To finish it off, we're going to create a custom nut. We're going to extrude again. We could finish here and keep it simple, but let's make it complicated. We're going to make a custom wing nut. We're going to round off these edges, round it off a little bit more, add a chamfer, create some threads, and that's it. We are done. Let's jump into the last program. This is the slicer for the STL files. And just like always, I forget something. This would be a good tree topper if it had a hole in the bottom. But lucky for us, we can do some editing in this software. That looks good. Crisis averted. Now we can slice the file and see how it will print layer by layer. Let's move on to the lid. Slice this as well. Check out the layers. Looks great. Move on to the eyes. We're going to duplicate it. Add the wing nut. Duplicate that as well. Let's slice it up and check out those layers. We exported all the G-code. We're all done with programs. Let's move on to the 3D printer. Filament we're using is transparent yellow. Let's check out this time lapse. We got the main body. Hole came out perfect. Got the lid. time for the nuts and bolts. Here's all our parts. We're going to shove it all inside. Going to make room for the bolts to fit through and tighten up the nuts. And there it is, all put together. If you enjoy content like this, we'll see you in the next video.